Weber here, and Chairman Zuber.
Here. And let the record reflect that the Commissioner Eggenberger, Foster, and Okan let us know they weren't going to be here, and hopefully Commissioner Singh comes in soon, who knows. So, and we have some staff members here. We have Patrick Sloan, Aaron Schluto, and Zach Michels and Zach is our newest planning commissioner, or our newest assistant planner. Is that the role that you've?
Associate planner.
Associate planner, sorry. I don't know the difference between these job titles, so forgive me. And we have Sarah Gabus here, our legal advisor. And anybody have anything to say about the minutes from last month?
Motion to approve.
All right.
Support.
All right. We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Watkins and support from Commissioner Weber. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? This is a quorum, right, Patrick? I guess I should have asked that first.
That's correct. We have 5 of 9.
Okay,
So
thank
just
you.
barely, but it is quorum.
Okay, we squeaked by. Awesome. Very good. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda from
No
staff?
changes.
No? Anybody else got anything to add or subtract? Very good. All right. Any communications? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm good at skipping things. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
All right. We have a motion from Commissioner Weber and support from Commissioner Watkins to approve the agenda. Please join me in signifying yes by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. And Commissioner Singh. Yay, thanks for coming. Okay. Any communications?
No additional communications.
Okay. All right, very good. We have no public hearings tonight. We have no old business tonight, so let's get right to the new business. The first item on our agenda is Lowe's. It's item number 040-ZCSS-7695. Consider a seasonal sales permit for Lowe's at parcel number 040990002-705 at 44080 Ford Road. The property is located on the north side of Ford Road between Sheldon Road and Morton Taylor Road. Proposed use is seasonal sales. Patrick, tell us all about it, please.
Thank you. So this evening, there's a seasonal sales permit for Lowe's, and later in the agenda, we have a seasonal sales permit from both Home Depots in the township on Michigan Ave and Ford Road. So now's the time of year where the lawn and garden centers come in for seasonal sales permits for their spring sales. And for this case, as well as other cases for seasonal sales in the Township Planning Commission previously adopted a motion that allowed for staff to reapprove seasonal sales in future years if there were no changes to the plans or if there were no changes to the ordinances. So that original motion was in 2020, and in 2021, the staff approved the plans because there were no changes. In 2022, there were some changes to these plans that included additional storage of mulch and soil in 15 parking spaces adjacent to the west side of the garden center. And then it also included tree and shrub corrals east of the garden center, which was in a large concrete sidewalk area adjacent to the building, but that didn't block the fire access or the door. So in 2020, those changes were approved, subject to the minimum sidewalk width of 5 feet being maintained between the tree and shrub corral and the fire lane. This year, the plans are very similar to 2022, except there are a few additional details on the rolling racks in front of the garden center, and the 5-foot walkway is illustrated. The Fire Department, Engineering Services Division, and Building Division have reviewed the plans and have recommended approval. The permit will commence on the date that the racks and materials are placed, and it'll go for a period of 60 days. So staff's recommendation is approval of 2 consecutive 30-day seasonal sales permits for the live goods, plant racks, storage of mulch and soil, and a tree and shrub corral as shown on the plans. That concludes our report, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Patrick, all right, I assume you might be the project sponsor?
Yes, my name is Don Stump. I'm the store manager of that location.
Okay.
Good to see
awesome.
you guys again. Yeah, as Patrick outlined, the plan is very similar to what we had outlined last year with the temporary soil mulch storage, the temporary rolling racks in front of the garden center as he outlined, and then a small placement of tree and shrubs out on the front. All the easements and fire egress and all that have been maintained, and as he outlined, we covered that, and Patrick has been a very good shepherd for me through all the things that we've had to navigate here. So otherwise, it's pretty similar to the way it was last year. I'm just here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Anybody on the commission have anything to say about this? Shall we start down with you, Gordon?
No issues? Comments?
Okay. Harpreet?
No, no comments. Thank you.
Brian? No? Okay. I don't either. I don't have a problem with this. Anybody want to hazard a motion?
I move to approve the 230-day seasonal sales permit for actually, I'm sorry, I'm at a Home Depot.
Substitute Lowe's.
Can we get all three up here at the same time? We'll just do-
Again, I move to approve 230-day seasonal sales permit for Lowe's at 44080 Ford Road, parcel number 040-99-0002-705, commencing on April 15th, ending on June 15th, 2023, for live goods, plant racks, storage of mulch and soil, and a tree and shrub corral as shown on the plan. I also move to authorize staff to reapprove renewal of the permit in subsequent years if there have been no violations or compliance issues and the future plan does not change in any way.
Support. All right. So we have a motion by Commissioner Singh and support by Commissioner Watkins. Any further discussion? All right. Commissioner Weber, could you call the roll, please, the vote, please?
Commissioner Janowski.
Yes.
Commissioner, not Ocon. Commissioner Cruz.
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Singh.
Yes.
Zuber.
Yes. All right. Very good. Thank you. All right. So we have a similar item for item number 2 and 3. So item number 2 is item number 1, agenda item number 129-ZCSS-7710. The Home Depot on Michigan Ave would like us to consider a seasonal sales permit for parcel numbers 129-99-0001-701 at 45900 Michigan Ave. The property is located on the north side of Michigan Ave between Canton Center Road and Beck Road. Proposed use is seasonal sales. Patrick, do you have anything to add to that?
Just a summary of, similar to the previous case where there was an original approval in 2020 where the Planning Commission adopted a motion to approve the seasonal sales permits for 2 consecutive 30-day permits and allowed staff to approve the plans in future years if there were no changes. In 2021, staff approved the renewal of the seasonal sales permit because there were no changes. In 2022, there was a wheelbarrow assembly area added to the front of the store, so that change went to the Planning Commission, which was approved on April 4th, 2022. The proposed 2023 plans are the same as the 2022 plans, except there's an expansion of the mulch and soil pallet storage shown adjacent to the northwest and north sides of the garden center. Although the temporary storage will be located near the front of the southernmost loading dock, The applicant has stated that this dock is not actively used during the storage period. However, there does appear to be sufficient space in front of the dock to load and unload if necessary. The Fire Department, Engineering Services Division, and Building Division have all recommended approval of the proposal. And I'll bring up the plan that's subject to because this is one where there has been some storage in the past where it's been mentioned in previous seasonal sales permits for this use where there has been additional soil and mulch. So this is on the north side of the garden center area. It's near the loading dock. And it's not really visible from the front unless you're in the back or you're looking back. And so this area here, this hatched area, is the garden center, which is fenced. And starting near the back on the west side, there's mulch and soil pallets that are proposed and wrapping around this outdoor garden center all the way up to, these are dimensioned here, but a distance from the bay door of this dock on the south side. And again, the applicants have noted that this dock door is not used during this period. So there's 3 other docks that are available, but there is a space from the dock door to the front of the area if they needed to maneuver a truck. So that illustrates the changes that are made to this plan for Home Depot. So with that, staff's recommendation is approval of the 2 30-day seasonal sales permits for the live good tables, plant racks, storage of mulch and soil and sod, and the assembled wheelbarrows as shown on the plan. And also one of the criteria for the storage of mulch is it has to be a minimum setback from the adjacent lot line. And because this is on the opposite side of the driveway, interior of the site near the garden center area, it meets the surrounding setbacks.
Project sponsor present? No? All right. How about anybody from the commission? I'll start with Brian this time. Anybody got an issue? Questions?
No questions, other than, this was brought up last year about the storage of the materials on the back side, on the north side. I wish the project sponsor was here to discuss. That's the one question I would have for them, so I don't know if we can hash that out here, or if we need to bring. Yeah. I haven't driven to the back side to look on the north side to see if it was still there at all.
Brought it up every year.
Yeah, he did?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, an issue for me, just to see if there's an understanding that they shouldn't overload that north side. I think that would be my only concern.
No questions.
Sorry, that was brought up before? Is it, okay. What was the
Last year.
response?
I thought ordinance enforcement was gonna, or the building department was gonna talk to the manager about that.
Yeah, ordinance enforcement has been out there. And I know that it's been something that they've coordinated with the adjacent property owners, with adjacent property owners who have commented on it and people nearby. I know ordinance has been out there about getting the materials removed. So it is something that when we have heard concerns or complaints that they've gone back to ordinance.
Project sponsor was here.
Madam Chair, if I could, I think what would probably be best is, this probably isn't the most expedient way to take care of it, but I think it's probably worth giving them an opportunity this spring, summer to get it right. I will commit to going to the north side, to viewing it, and then should there be a problem this year, I think, Patrick, we don't have a problem bringing them back, or looking at this approval and, well, discussing it further.
Their permit's not supposed to start until May 8th, so.
Got it.
Correct.
Perfect. There you go. Perfect. All right.
So if we,
With that being said, I would have no issues at this point. Yeah. Yep.
a motion to
I guess
table
we
it?
want to go through the rest.
I mean, if we table this, will they have sufficient time to do what they need to do between May 1st and May 8th? Because obviously, most probably it's going to get approved.
Well,
but-
if they were concerned about that, they could have been here to show up to discuss this.
Yeah, and in terms of their timing for bringing materials out, I don't know how long they have from when they order it to when they store it there. So I don't know what an extra 4 weeks would do. But to Commissioner Watkins' point is, if there's something in either the seasonal sales permit or any seasonal sales permit where there was something that didn't quite go well with the permit, we would bring that up in future years in terms of, something that either wouldn't be approved or modified or some other condition that goes along with it. Yeah, we can ask ordinance enforcement.
Madam Chair, with that, I wouldn't hold it up with my question. So if we wanted to move it forward, should everyone vote that way, I wouldn't have a problem.
But as Commissioner Weber asked, that is there a way to modify this motion to include some language for the next year when they come for the similar plan again? So that, can we put something in there saying that this year has been approved contingent upon that they abide by the ordinance rules of Canton? And if they are in violation, then this may be a problem approving it in future years.
Yeah, what we can, the last part of the model motion, we can take that out where it allows for reapproval in future years based on ordinance enforcement issues at the site. Where the other seasonal sales locations, I'm not aware of any ordinance enforcement issues related to seasonal sales, but this one, we could remove the last part if it,
That's what I was going to ask. Has this issue ever arisen at the Ford Road Home Depot?
I'm not aware of it being an issue there. Yeah.
Are they showing where they're gonna store everything? These dimensions? I'm trying to decipher this.
It says a palletized mulch and dirt, 8 feet, I assume 8 foot deep and 130 feet long. And then they've got soil 36 feet, mulch and soil 27.6, but that looks longer than 36, but whatever.
Problem is, you spoiled us with the first one.
Yeah.
With the visual, and this is not as good.
Thank you for doing your homework.
Yeah, really.
And
I mean,
the applicant didn't show up to answer anything. I mean, it's hard to decipher that.
Yeah, for that reason, I don't have a problem tabling this. I mean, if 7 days isn't enough for them to get their act together, then they have no one to blame but themselves, as far as I'm concerned. But
I think I agree with that.
So what are we directing the applicant to do after tonight, I guess? I want to make sure that they have clear direction on what they're supposed to do. That's different from what they've given us,
what's that?
drawing.
Oh, a clear and legible drawing would be a place to start. Like, I don't know what the dimension is between the end of the palletized and mulch
I don't
and
either.
dirt and the loading dock. I don't know what
And
that dimension is.
it's an assumption that
Right.
it's that depth,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, I'm assuming. And it says one dock stationary trailer, so is there just gonna be a trailer parked there the whole time?
I would maybe give them the Lowe's example, honestly.
Exactly.
It was very clear, the visual.
I assume the fire department has done their due diligence and They have looked at these plans in detail.
Right here in the letter, it says Dock 1 is a stationary trailer parked for the season.
Thank you. I did
This
not-
trailer will not be moved out. I don't really like that.
Well, if it doesn't impede with the means of egress, it probably isn't.
Madam Chair, if I may, so, I don't know how to phrase the motion, but I think we should bring this back and allow the applicant another opportunity to discuss. And whatever that looks like in a motion, I'd be more than willing to present it to this body.
I think we're tabling it then. Is that?
Yeah, deferring action, and then we would want to defer action to May 1st, pending receipt of the details and information that were mentioned.
Madam Chair, I move that we table this petition until the next meeting of the Planning Commission.
Support? Do we, yeah,
I think we should.
Direction as to what?
Thank you.
Got it. So the motion would read, I'm proposing to bring it back based upon the applicant not being in attendance to answer questions.
Or
In conjunction with a very detailed drawing
drawing or
of the,
plan or something?
Your-
of the
yeah.
seasonal elements. All right, is that it?
support.
All right.
So we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Watkins and support by Commissioner Singh. Any further discussion?
Patrick, so the fire department looked at this and approved it, is that correct?
Right, yeah.
Okay. So, does it go back to them also? Because they may, here's what I'm getting at. The visual may depict something that the fire department doesn't like now. You know, does it circulate back to them?
It does. Whenever we get revised plans, we send it internally to our Development Review Committee team. So
Okay.
fire, building, engineering, and planning will all look at any revised plans.
All right, so we have a motion and support on the floor. Anybody else got anything to say? No? All right. Commissioner Weber, could you call the vote, please?
Commissioner Cruz? We're voting on motion to table to May 1st.
Yes.
Commissioner Janowski? Yes. Commissioner Singh?
Yes,
Watkins?
Yes.
Weber, yes. Chairman Zuber?
Yes. All right. Very good.
And Patrick, I mean, we kind of joked up here, but if you don't mind, I'd show them the Lowe's example as to what we want, or what would be helpful.
Part of the public record now, so.
Oh, he's very proud.
Yeah, really. I mean, we're making Lowe's look really good tonight.
Should we send something to corporate? You deserve a raise?
Yeah, really. All right, so is the other Home Depot here. So we have 049 ZCSS 7723, the Home Depot on Ford Road would also like a seasonal sales permit for parcel number 049990001-720. The address is 39825 Ford Road. The property is located on the south side of Ford Road between Lots and Hicks Roads, and the proposed use is seasonal sales. Patrick, could you elucidate?
Sure. So like the other two seasonal sales in 2020, the Planning Commission had approved the permit and allowed staff to approve the permits in future years if there were no changes. And in 2021 and 2022, there were no changes, so staff had approved those plans. In 2023, now these, some of the plans, year over year, they are copied from previous plans, and then what we do is we identify any changes to the plans. So what is shown here on the plans, it's the same as what's been approved in previous years. The only difference is that east of the main entrance, in a large concrete area, there's an area for grill displays. And I can bring up on the aerial. So here's the front of the store, and let me get north to point up. So this is the north side of the store. The grill display will be just east of that main entrance. It's a large, wide concrete area, and it's fairly open right there, so there would be room for accessibility and emergency access. So our fire department has recommended approval, and so is our building division and our engineering division. So staff's recommendation for that change is approval.
All they're putting outside is just those grills?
They're putting out a lot of other items. Let me bring up the map here. The grills are the only change that has taken place, but the rest of it is the same as it was the last 3 years at least.
I couldn't even see those until I zoomed way in on the
Oh,
the drawing. They wrote it in little tiny, it looks like a dot.
Which way is north on this drawing? To the left.
yeah, so the main entrance faces north, so right now, north would be facing down.
Oh,
Well,
north
and the
is
way he's turned it.
Oh, the way he's got it turned. Looks like both Home Depot's got the same architect here.
I don't think they have an architect.
Fantastic.
You're
Yeah.
using the same matches.
So the area, like the live,
Home Depot must not pay overtime for their managers to come and present.
Gotta show up.
so they have the live good racks, the live good tables, the walkout area, all the things that are labeled on the plan. It's pretty much the same plan that they've used since at least 2020. So it's, zoomed in, it's all the same except for that grill storage area east of the entrance.
Now parking places over here on the west side, is that for mulch and stuff?
Egg goods. Down, yeah. Bag goods.
Yeah, so they have an area there for bag goods that they use. Yeah,
Vary
mulch and
based on
soil.
Seasonality, and needs of the business. Seasonality, I like that better.
Now, we don't have any of the same issues with this Home Depot that we've had at the Michigan Avenue store, right?
I haven't heard of any code enforcement issues at this location.
I only recall it for the Michigan Ave store.
I gotta be honest, I mean, this doesn't look problematic to me, but I don't like that no one showed up, and I definitely don't like the presentation, but, just if I'm just being consistent. But I don't know if there's enough here for me to approve it.
It's just hard to see what they're proposing.
Yeah, I know, I mean,
Once you zoom in, you can see it.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the things I think that we should consider, though, is this, and I've been by this particular store, and I've seen this same display out there, and it looks the same every year.
I know, I agree. This one's right around the corner for me, too.
Anybody have any? What do you guys think?
I'll make a motion if.
Okay.
Oops, I gotta get to that page, 1 second. Let me get to that. I move to approve two 30-day seasonal permits for Home Depot at 39825 Ford Road, parcel number 0499900011718, commencing on April 15th, 2023, and ending on June 14th, 2023 for live goods tables, plant racks, storage of mulch and soil, and grill displays as shown on the plans. I also move to authorize staff to reapprove renewal of the permit in subsequent years if there have been no violations or compliance issues and the future plan does not change in any way.
Support.
Sorry, who supported that? All right. So we have a motion by Commissioner Weber and support by Commissioner Janowski. Any further discussion? All right. Commissioner Weber, could you please call the vote?
Commissioner Cruz.
Yes.
Commissioner Janowski. Commissioner Singh.
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins.
Yes.
Weber, yes. Chairman Zuber.
Yes. All right. Well, if they were here, we could tell them what their next step was, but, all right.
Lowe's is thinking I went to too much trouble.
All right, so we have another item on our agenda, 049 SPD 7584, Tremont Place. We are considering a site plan for parcels number 049-99-0001712 and there's several. So there's 713 and 714 as well. And this address is 1632 North Lots Road. And then another parcel, 499900011716. This property is located on the east side of North Lots Road between Ford Road and Cherry Hill Road. Proposed use is multifamily residential. So, Patrick, tell us more.
All right.
We are seeing this for site plan approval now. We've seen some amendments to their plans, their PDD, so tell us all about it.
Okay. At the January 11th meeting of this year, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the plan development amendment, subject to conditions. And the township and the applicants are currently in the process of making some minor modifications to their PD agreement, notably about the sewer access agreement. Nothing really material to the items that the Planning Commission reviewed on January 11th. Once those plan development modifications are agreed upon, the plan development will proceed to the next available township board agenda. And then at that time, the township board may act on the plan development amendment prior to or concurrent with the site plan application, depending on if both are ready for township board review. What's proposed is the third amendment to the final plan development for Tremont Place. The main purpose of the most recent PD amendment that was approved by the Planning Commission was due to or recommended for approval rather, was due to a requirement of Wayne County to locate the stormwater ponds outside of the floodway areas. Prior to that, there were other amendments to the original PD agreement, and before that, there was a conditional zoning agreement. Let me just go through my notes here. At the previous Planning Commission meeting, there were some conditions of approval that were required of the applicant. And some of them were just changes to make it consistent with what we would require for a site plan. And there were also some changes that were more noticeable where they had to make some, I would say, significant revisions. And one of the areas was the location of a park. On January 11th, the Planning Commission adopted a condition of approval for the plan development to add a park to the site. And so there has been a park with a play structure added to the plans east of Building 11, which is a townhome building. And to create space for that park area, there's been a unit removed from the east side of Building 11 and a unit added to the north side of Building 5, which is also a townhome building. Therefore, there's no increase in density as a result of the park, and one townhome unit just goes to a different building, so there's no change in the allocation of the units there. Another change has been to the architecture of the buildings. At the January 11th meeting, the Planning Commission adopted a condition subject to changing the roof lines of the stacked flat buildings. And those changes have since been made to the plans to change those roof lines to make them a little bit more consistent with what the Planning Commission was asking, as well as what their architect felt they were able to do with those changes. On the plans that were reviewed by the Planning Commission on January 11th, the clubhouse architecture was the same as the previous plans in 2021. However, since the January 11th Planning Commission meeting of this year, the applicants have modified the clubhouse plans to make the clubhouse larger, which includes a larger fitness area, a lounge and leasing office. There's also a maintenance room and a dog wash room added to the clubhouse. The architecture of the clubhouse on the site plan is different from the plans reviewed by the Planning Commission on January 11th. Our recommendation there is that the brick area of the clubhouse be 27%, consistent with the PD that's recommended for approval. Overall, for the site, the density remains at 282 units, which was proposed on the conditional rezoning agreement, which was approved, and also proposed on the PD amendment, which was reviewed on January 11th. The project open space it will be 60%. The minimum is 25%, so significantly more than the minimum amount of open space required is being preserved on the site. The Tremont, for the access management, the Tremont Place traffic will enter and exit the site at Lots Road through a main access road, and also there's a secondary access road proposed on the south side of the site. Naples Drive is on the north side, that's the primary entrance and exit, and Florence Drive on the south is more of a secondary access point. All the internal roads will be private, and the internal roads are 27 feet wide per the zoning ordinance, unless where those roads convert to a parking lot access aisle. At the January 11th Planning Commission meeting this year, the Planning Commission recommended approval subject to some portions of the internal roads being widened to 27 feet. And the applicant has since revised the plans to satisfy that condition. There are a couple of modifications that are recommended. One of the proposed modifications is a modification from the unit landscape requirements of section 5.03C of the zoning ordinance for the stacked flat buildings, and also a modification from the minimum parking requirements for the stacked flat buildings. And for the landscaping, the zoning ordinance requires a minimum of two trees, 2 deciduous or evergreen trees, 1 ornamental tree, and 4 shrubs per dwelling unit. So, and that's for multifamily projects. So for multifamily projects that are more than 1 story, that's a very dense landscaping that can many times not be achieved. If it's a 2 or 3 story building, having 3 trees and 4 shrubs per unit can add up quite a bit. And with a site that's preserving open space and has other areas dedicated to parking and drives and stormwater, there are only so many areas where trees and shrubs can be planted. For example, with each stacked flat building having 26 units, the landscape requirements would be 78 trees and 104 shrubs for each stacked flat building. In lieu of that requirement, the applicant proposes that the unit landscaping requirements for each stacked flat building be based on the number of units on the second floor, which has 10 units. Therefore, under the applicant's proposal, each stacked flat building would be required to have 20 deciduous or evergreen trees, 10 ornamental trees, and 40 shrubs. Section 5.07 of the zoning ordinance allows the Planning Commission to modify specific landscape requirements of the ordinance, provided that any such adjustment is in keeping with the intent of the ordinance. This is a modification that's been granted in the past for multifamily projects. So because this has been granted in the past and the available areas to plant trees are limited based on the preserved open space and meeting the other requirements, we recommend approval of that modification. And finally, with the parking, the zoning ordinance requires 2 parking spaces for each 1 or 2 bedroom unit and 3 parking spaces for each 3 bedroom unit. There's also a requirement for additional guest parking that has to be 20% of the spaces required, which is an added number of parking spaces required. The parking requirements for the townhomes are met because each townhome has a two-car garage and a two-car driveway. Based on the number of bedrooms in the stacked flat units, the ordinance requires 528 parking spaces. The applicant is proposing 424 parking spaces for the stacked flat buildings, which is a reduction of 104 spaces. These spaces are allocated based on 96 garage spaces, 96 private drive spaces in front of each garage, and 232 surface and carport parking spaces dispersed throughout that area of the site for the stacked flat buildings. Based on our review of the parking generation manual from the Institute of Transportation Engineers, the 85th percentile for parking demand for a low-rise multifamily use on a Saturday is between 296 and 331 spaces. For occupied units, using that factor, the 85th percentile is 296 spaces. So that 85th percentile is pretty accurate in terms of being in the high 200s to low to mid 300s in terms of the parking demand. So based on that information, we recommend approval of the 424 parking spaces for the stacked flat buildings. If the parking demand ever exceeded capacity in the future, there are areas adjacent to the proposed spaces where additional parking can be built. And the applicants have also provided information in terms of, based on other properties that they've managed and their experience with multifamily development and management, they have a letter indicating that the number of parking spaces is adequate for the product that's being developed. The last item in the letter is that for the dumpster enclosure, the dumpster plans are designed to comply with the ordinance, except the dumpster wall masonry must be the same as the masonry of the buildings. So it's a very minor modification to the plans that needs to take place. And then I did have one more thing with the lighting on the site. The only recommendation there is that at the entrances, we recommend that the light fixtures at the entrances at Lots Road be 12-foot high fixtures in more of a decorative style. And there are other decorative styles that have been used in the township, so there's a number of them out there. There's not any one specific style that I think has to be used. So it's a fairly minor modification, but something that we wanted to call out. So staff's recommendation is approval of the site plan, which would be a recommendation of approval to the township board, with approval including a modification to the unit landscape requirements of section 5.03C of the zoning ordinance for the stacked flat buildings, and a modification to the minimum parking requirements of section 4.01C6 of the zoning ordinance for the stacked flat buildings, as proposed, subject to all state, county, and township requirements, and subject to the following three conditions. First, ensuring the brick area of the clubhouse is 27%, consistent with the PD. Second, revising the dumpster plans to make the dumpster wall masonry the same masonry as the buildings pursuant to section 2.14 of the zoning ordinance. And finally, third, revising the lighting plans to make the 12-foot high fixtures at the entrances more of a decorative style. That concludes our staff report, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Is the project sponsor here? I mean, it helps if you do.
Good evening. My name is David Stolman, President of Biltmore Development, on behalf of Lots Road Sobey LLC. I was here in front of you January 11th for the PDD amendment, where we were unanimously recommended for approval. The site plan that's in front of you is, I don't want to say virtually identical, but it's, with the exception of the changes that Patrick described, and he went through them in detail, it's basically the same plan that you have. The changes to the clubhouse were a result of an oversight on our part. We had updated the architecture and everything else and just forgot to do the clubhouse. So we were like, okay, let's make it consistent. So that was the reason for the clubhouse. And we also updated the floor plans and added some more things that we felt were appropriate for the clubhouse. The clubhouse, as far as the brick material, the 27% is fine, and based on the information we have right now, it's well in excess of that. So that's not an issue or a problem. And then the additional conditions or conditions that Patrick described, the decorative lampposts, that's fine. The masonry dumpster enclosure is fine. It doesn't say brick, it just says masonry, and we just assumed that was brick, but we'll get that. It's just, we're just gonna change the word. So those two conditions are satisfactory, and other than that, we're here to answer any questions that you have. My engineer's with me and my architect, and I'm excited to get this moving forward.
Okay, very good. I will take things to the commission. Brian, since you're looking at me, you want to start?
Sure, I will. First of all, I can tell from our last meeting that we saw, the Tremonti team, that they made the architectural changes. I did have one additional question that I didn't have before, and that is, with regard to parking, and I guess it's a municipal or procedural question, is the team granted a variance on the parking, or are we approving as such, given them not meeting the minimums as required?
That's a good question. So the parking would not be a variance. It's not required to have a variance like anything with the Zoning Board of Appeals or anything like that. The zoning ordinance allows the Planning Commission to grant what's called a modification in the parking. So the Planning Commission is empowered to allow parking that is less than the minimum or more than the maximum based on a number of factors, whether it's information from the applicant or other data that's presented.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Just a follow-up question on that. Patrick, you said that in future, if there is a need for more parking, there is a space. So there is an anticipation of that need, I believe, but originally this, the whole project was a rental project, and now these are for sale units. So if
Other way around.
Vice versa, yeah.
it's a vice versa. Oh, I'm sorry then. Okay, so then if there is a need for the additional parking structure, then obviously you guys will build it. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry then. I thought the homeowners are gonna build that parking space if it is for sale again. Yeah.
No. If additional spaces are needed, we've identified a few areas where we can add them in at any time.
Further question? Thank you.
Commissioner Weber?
I'm probably just missing it, but where are the carports going?
If you zoom in on the interior island that you see in there, it's labeled as the 80-foot carport in there. There's actually a dash, the dashed line parking spaces there are what indicate where the covered carport areas are around the site. So the dashed parking lines versus the solid parking lines. I'm Jared Kahn with Atwell, the engineer. There are 12 garages in each of the stacked flat buildings, but it's not enough, there's not enough space to provide physical garages for all 26 units in each of the buildings there. So each unit will have either a garage or a carport assigned to it. They're,
On the plan.
yes, they're to be gray, not green as in the photo. They're going to be gray.
And then, again, I'm probably just missing it, scrolling through these plans, blowing up and zooming out, I was looking for the detail on the park, the pocket park that's been added.
The play structure detail is on the landscape plans. I think it's sheet L2, I think. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a detail of the play structure there, which fits within I think it's a 35 by 40 square foot area on there for the park area.
It's basically just a playscape as opposed to a park.
Yeah, it's a large play structure, slides, climbing areas. For ages 5 through 12 was the target for that, to hit the largest range of children.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Cruz?
Now get ready.
I got just a couple things. Playscape. Explain to me, Patrick, that 85th percentile for this parking. What is this book?
The Institute of Traffic Engineers, they have a manual that's called Parking Generation. And what they have, it's a book, it's a few inches thick. And they have parking levels based on several dozens of different land uses, nationwide examples. And within that, they break them down by, like residential land uses, they have multifamily, high-rise, low-rise. They have parking based on whether it's an urban or a suburban environment. And so when we looked at this, we looked at multifamily low-rise in a suburban environment. And on a Saturday tends to be the busiest day in terms of the parking. And so the number of parking studies that they have there, they have levels that go from anywhere from the minimum and maximum. And those tend to be outliers, especially when there are a lot of data points there. And so sometimes we look at the average, sometimes we look at the 85th percentile, and the parking factors can be a number of different things. They can have the parking based on number of units or the number of occupied units, where they kind of drill down in terms of if all the units were occupied, how many spaces would be filled. So it's a book that the township has purchased that we use quite often to justify changes in parking levels, whether it's less than the minimum or more than the maximum. Most of the time, it's to be less than the minimum because our parking standards in general are more than are required in most cases. But rather than just accepting the notion that we have too many parking spaces required, that's a book that we like to use to see what the application is. So if it's like an average, sometimes we'll look at the average and we'll use it, but sometimes if we want to go a little bit higher, we'll pick that 85th percentile, and they specifically call out the 85th percentile in the book. So that's something that we'll go to if we try to go just a little bit higher, just to be on the high side of things.
So that was in line with what you were proposing. What's the comparison again?
I think his number was in the high 200s, or was it 300, Patrick?
So the ITE 85th percentile targets the high 200s to low 300s, which is actually well below where our experience with property management in these facilities are. Our experience is that 2 spaces per unit is the target that we need to provide. The ordinance criteria is well above that, but the 85th percentile falls well below that. So we went with the 2 spaces per unit, which puts us, I think it was 424 spaces, I think.
So you're more than the 85th?
We are more than the 85th by, roughly 100 spaces, 100 plus spaces, so.
Does that include the driveways as well?
It includes the driveway. Yes, all of these spaces are accounted for, but we have broken down the parking based on the 2 different types of uses. The townhomes, which have their own private driveways and garages, separate from the stacked flat area. So the stacked flat, where they don't necessarily have private driveways where we could add additional parking spaces to that, it's looking at just that area in itself. So there's no cross mingling of that parking.
You said you also looked at other developments that you had that were similar to this, is that right?
Well, myself and my partner have significant multifamily apartment experience, and our operator, we went to our operator who manages apartments across southeastern Michigan, and we said, hey, take a look at this. Understand something, if this was for sale and you felt like there was a shortage, I know home builders that would say, oh, we have enough parking, and maybe you don't, but we're gonna own this and operate it. The last possible thing we want is a parking problem, right?
Well, that's
So-
why I'm asking.
Yeah, so what we did is we took our plan, well before we submitted it, and we took it to Friedman, who's doing our apartment management, and we said, take a look at this and tell us if you're satisfied that it's adequately parked. And we made some adjustments based on different things that they told us with the carports, et cetera, and they are very comfortable that we're sufficiently
No
parked.
street parking, right, on this?
No.
No, I don't think
There
there is.
are technically street parking, right? We do have some interior streets on here, so we have a handful of parallel spaces here that Patrick's showing us here, right? So there-
Besides those, are there no
There's
parking
10 there,
signs?
there's some by the clubhouse, and there's a few over by the park area. But generally, most of that off-street, or the on-street parking areas are in the proximity of the townhomes, and the individual townhomes handle their own parking with their garages and their driveways.
So the reason I'm bringing it up is it's going to be very difficult to try to create parking. You have bioretention there, and unless you've master planned that detention area to include that parking, it's going to be very difficult for you to add parking later on and permit it with Wayne County. So those questions are, I want to make sure you guys are locked down with this parking, you know, okay.
Pat, you said it's about 104 spaces short, Patrick, correct?
Right, yeah. There's 528 spaces required based on our ordinance.
So, and you said still to be determined whether they need a variance or not. What's the threshold?
Well, they wouldn't need a variance. They would just be seeking a modification from the minimum parking requirements from the planning commission. So the threshold in the ordinance is just based on, I think it's just a demonstrated study that the site warrants less parking. And so we typically don't use a formal study where we go out and we measure parking at multifamily buildings, but we have in the past looked at our multifamily developments in the township, and we've looked at historical aerials. We've got over 20 aerials going back to 2014, and I know for a lot of big box stores, we do this as well because we get a lot of modifications when they come in for redeveloping their interior parking lot. But in other areas of the township, when we've looked at multifamily, it's fairly underparked by a large margin. The only,
I get it, yeah, I mean, I guess then my follow-up is, and sort of just kind of piggybacking on Commissioner Cruz's, is everybody, and this includes you folks and the planning department, on board that there's enough parking here for this development? I mean, before the commission says, okay, because 104 to me is a big difference.
Bell curve with where the outliers are or where the data points are. If you had that book, if I saw that, I could tell right off the bat.
Well,
Anyway, that's
yeah,
just
I
my-
mean, I'm pretty, as an engineer, I'm pretty
I'll
confident
I'll
that,
defer to you, because you're the engineer.
well, you've checked on it, you've checked against this book, you figured out what your demand is, and if they're both in agreement, then, I mean, you know more, you know more than us, so we're looking to you guys to make sure that the parking's adequate, yeah.
There's probably no revisiting this if there's.
There is none. There's no way that you're gonna add more parking later. Where would you do it, I guess?
Select areas within some of the internal islands that don't have the bioretention in there where we can expand some of them, you know, reducing some of the landscaping in the future if needed to expand and add in places here or there. But we don't expect there to be a increase in demand for parking, particularly as, you know, things develop with society these days. Fewer and fewer people are using multiple vehicles, and they're, you know, relying more on public transportation, bikes, and living locally, so.
In those, you couldn't even put parallel parking in those bioretention areas. You'd wipe them out. Now you're going back to the county, you know.
Bioretention areas won't be touched. Those are a requirement that we have been forced to add into the plan, so.
Chair, if I could, I think from a development perspective, when you start to think about lease up all the way to like, to stabilization, I mean, this is, I might have a problem if this was for sale, but this is rental. And in this case, you're talking about a percentage of this that is gonna be some vacancy there. And I don't have a problem, given my track record with even vertical development, that there's enough parking here. I do agree with the commissioner, though, that you're not gonna add another 100 parking
There's
spots
no
to
way.
this site
It's
at all.
impossible, yeah.
But I am comfortable with the development as it stands, and with the, not variance, but with the modification to the parking requirement as such. So, that's my take on this.
And I think this plan was previously approved with a similar number of parkings by us, right?
For the PDD with all the modifications. The parking number is, I believe, exactly the same as where it was at that point in time. Modifications of the plan was simply adding in the park area and some of the architectural changes that were discussed, so.
I tend to agree with what Commissioner Watkins is saying, that we'll probably never see full capacity of the parking. It just, and call me a pessimist, whatever, the minute we say we're okay with it is when it'll end up getting parked up, and then then we have a problem. But, I mean, and I think it's, for me, it's just wrapping my head around that big number of over 100 spaces that it's short, because I'm so used to, it being at least that, and, maybe a little less than what's required, but.
I got a couple other items. So, the last meeting, actually, one of the audience members brought up Lots Road approach. Have you submitted to Wayne County for that?
We have gone through Wayne County review. What we have not continued forward with is the detailed engineering review with Wayne
Okay.
County. But we have had further correspondence with them regarding the access points, the two entrances there. They've reviewed the geometrics on that. Those are acceptable, but we don't have any formal correspondence on that yet without having the engineering plans formally prepared.
They approved the geometrics that you're showing there
Yes.
without a decel lane?
Yep, the traffic study does not warrant an XL decel lane on there, just standard tapers.
Okay. I'm surprised with this many units, and what is it, a 2 or 3 lane road?
It's a 3-lane road with the center left
Center.
turn on there.
So somebody is gonna have to stop when somebody turns. I'm surprised at that.
Did they determine that? I guess I'm asking you, is that determined by what they see as far as the level of traffic on a given road?
Yeah, it's likely because Lots Road is way, the level of service is so low that it won't, they're saying it won't cause a backup, but as Lots Road gets developed, I mean, you see it on Beck Road, where people are backing up and stopping because they never planned for these decel lanes. And I thought Wayne County would catch on that, but,
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, and I can never, I always forget the name of the development. The development we approved that's at Getty's and Denton. They're putting decel lanes on Getty's Road. Now, granted, Getty's is more heavily traveled than Lots, and it's a higher speed. But that's a significant development in terms of size, and they're requiring decel lanes there.
Yeah, their traffic study showed warrants for deceleration lanes, in some cases, I think dedicated left turn lanes. And that's an area of the township that's been fast growing where there are major developments at or near many of the corners.
But to Commissioner Cruz's point, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that the area along Lots Road gets further developed over the years. I mean,
You could do
Yeah, you
Sell
can.
it.
It's under Wayne County's jurisdiction, though. Yeah.
Yeah, and Wayne County will, their permit department will have to review the plans too for stormwater, for curb cut permits. So it's always possible that Wayne County may require something that isn't shown on the plans.
Yeah, I'm just surprised I've done so many developments with very low volume roads, less than this, and decel tapers right away, you know.
And we understand that their initial comments on that was to take a look at whether or not the requirements were met to add the XL decel tapers in the traffic study. And I think it comes down to having that second southern entry there. It splits up that traffic load on there, and it doesn't meet the threshold criteria for having those in there.
Lots Road, is that unposted or is it 55?
It's 35.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
about
it is?
35, yeah, that's low, yeah.
More reason then, yeah. Huh, okay. Again, that's Wayne County's jurisdiction. I'm just surprised at that. Yeah, so the lighting, you said it's gonna be a 12-foot light ornamental. You're gonna review, your department's gonna review that? Who's reviewing the type?
The planning staff will review it. They show a 12-foot light, but it's a type of fixture that you may see in a commercial development where it's, that it has that more of that application and not really like an ornamental residential light. So driving down roads, sometimes you see at the entrance of subdivisions, it's an ornamental light at the entrance, whether it's.
Nicer.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a number of suppliers and a number of different specifications that are out there to choose from. It's just
Okay.
something that.
I just want to make sure that they're not just choosing one and it goes, like your department's reviewing it, right?
Yeah, we'll look at it first before
Okay.
those plans are submitted, and hopefully before they go to the board, just so that.
I was just going to say that, Patrick. We'll get it to you so that you'll have it before the board meeting. So staff will review it, and the township board can review that as well.
One last thing, this is quick. So I want to, as an engineer, I brought this up at the last meeting about Wayne County, and you can't store in the floodplain or the floodway, and it changes the plan every time Wayne County changes the plan. Same thing goes with those conservation easements, and it is hard to wipe out and vacate a conservation easement, but you've submitted to Wayne County, FEMA, to get those conservation easements vacated, is that right?
No.
You're not encroaching on them.
Let me split the discussion in two parts. As far as the floodplain and the floodway, all that, we, several months ago, submitted the Clomer to them, to FEMA. We've gotten initial feedback from them, and they were really just, they wanted some more information about things. It doesn't appear there's any problem with the Clomer at all. I could wake up tomorrow and have an email saying it was approved. I mean,
Okay.
we haven't heard anything. So that seems
So
to be.
it's ongoing correspondence?
It's going, yeah,
Perfect.
and that seems to all be fine. So that was the floodplain. Your other question was on the.
Conservation.
Conservation easement. The conservation easements, and I don't know if you know the long history of this property, but.
No, don't tell me it,
Okay.
though.
Long story short, there was a problem with the DEQ at the time, and Eagle, and a bad developer. They resolved all of that with Eagle by setting up conservation easements, which are established, they're recorded, and we are working our way all around those conservation
Okay.
easements. So we are not impacting them, we are not modifying them, nothing of the sort.
Good. That's all I got.
And then there is one item that I do want to illustrate here on the board. And so ITE, they have a web app that's part of having the book, is they also have a web app for the chart. And so it looks like it doesn't show the entire chart on the screen here, but it does show that if we put in the number of spaces for 208 occupied parking spaces, the average, what is that?
367?
Yeah, so that's the average rate. There are some outliers. I think the outlier data point was this one here, which is almost a 2-to-1. And The right margin doesn't really show up, but in the right margin, it gives the whole range of rates. And at the top of the range for this model, it was just over 2 parking spaces per unit. And it's based on occupied units. So we did this model based on all 208 stacked flat units being occupied. And using this, if it were 2 to 1, it would still be that number based on what's proposed.
Oh, okay. All right, anybody else on the board? I'm good with it. I like the way the elevations changed. So thank you for that. I don't have anything to add to what everyone else has already said, so anybody want to make a motion?
Move it. I move to recommend approval of the Tremonti Place site plan, formerly named Wellington on the Willow and Tremont Place, on parcel number 049-99-0001-712, 049-99-0001-713, and 049-99-0001-714, and 049-99-0001-716 as proposed, including a modification to the unit landscape requirements of section 5.03C for the stacked flat buildings, and a modification to the minimum parking requirements of section 4.01C6 for the stacked flat buildings as shown on the plans, subject to all state, county, and township requirements, and subject to the following conditions. 1, ensuring the brick area of the clubhouse is 27%, consistent with the PD. 2, revising the dumpster plans to make the dumpster wall masonry the same masonry as the buildings pursuant to section 2.14 of the zoning ordinance. And 3, revising the lighting plans to make the 12-foot high fixtures at the entrances more of a decorative style.
Quite to his standard.
I don't know. I mean, it's darn close. All right, so we have a motion by the very dramatic Commissioner Watkins and support by Commissioner Janowski. Was that Commissioner Janowski I heard? All right, thank you. And Commissioner Weber, would you call the vote, please?
Commissioner Cruz,
Could you be more dramatic?
Yes.
Commissioner Janowski,
Yes.
Singh,
Yes.
Watkins.
No, I'm going to give my yes with a comment. What's funny, and it just hit me. So we got to go back to Home Depot again. The problem with the previous Home Depot on Mission was the fact that the items were being lined up behind the store on the north side because it bordered residential. Guess what? We now have a new residential development that's going to back up.
Now the Ford Road Home Depot will have to keep.
The
their
Home
act-
Depot.
to keep their act.
So it's a yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Commissioner Weber, yes, and Chairman Zuber.
Yes. All right, very good. Congratulations. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, good that you could make it.
Thank you for the nice presentation also.
Yeah, exactly. All right, thank you. All right, so next on the agenda, we have some miscellaneous staff reports, commission, and liaison comments. Discuss the master plan. We have some fun things, don't we, Erin?
Fun things, yes, yes, every month, fun things. Thank you, good evening, everyone. Included in your packet this, for tonight is the Canton Township Master Plan update, so you can read through that at your leisure. So one thing I wanted to highlight is the Master Plan Advisory Board met on March 9th, and they started their first discussion on Cherry Hill Village. McKenna Consultants presented a brief history of Cherry Hill Village, including how and why the area was designed, public feedback that were received during the conceptual designs back in the 90s, and the future expansions that included a lot of the residential areas. So the consultants reviewed a lot of the existing conditions with the advisory board and showed the distribution of the residential, commercial, religious, and some of the open space and vacant land in the area. Part of this was to look at what are some of the strengths, the weaknesses, the things that need to the things that make Cherry Hill Village great and the things that could be improved upon. So we also conducted a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So it was a really vibrant and wonderful discussion with everybody. So the responses there was included for you for your leisure. In addition to that, there was discussion about a town square. Now, a lot of the public feedback that we had received through a lot of our engagements and activities that we've been doing as part of this project has been focused on the fact that Cherry Hill Village is great. People don't necessarily know that it's there. There's not much to do there. They want more public amenities to draw them into that area. The Cherry Hill Village is great, and there's 1 or 2 restaurants, but there's not anything there to kind of keep people in that area or drive people there. So that's something that we've been talking about. So in conjunction with the master plan, the Township Administration has also been contracting with OHM and looking at some conceptual renderings and designs for a town square project. So that's something that, while we gave the history and looked at some of the analysis of the existing conditions, now we're working towards what we can do about it and what are some recommendations and things that could come about in the future. So I sent you all an email about this last week or the week before, I can't recall. But on April 13th, so next Thursday, when the Master Plan Advisory Board would typically meet and have another one of our discussions, we're actually going to have a joint meeting with the Township Board, Planning Commission, and the Master Plan Advisory Board to discuss and review the conceptual designs that have been put together by the other consultant firm. That meeting will take place 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. The details on where that's going to be located are still being finalized at the moment. So you should hear something within the next day or so on exactly where that's going to be, but we want to make sure we have something that has projection abilities, and certainly members of the public might be in attendance, so we need something that can house all of us and anybody that wants to join. So the meeting will be recorded if you're unable to attend at that time, but there's not going to be a Zoom option. Okay.
That is a public meeting, right?
It is going to be a public meeting, yes, because we're going to have the Planning Commission, Township Board, Advisory Board, so it is subject to the Open Meetings Act. So the agendas will be posted as soon as we finalize the location details. We've got a couple of places that we're narrowing down, and so we should have that finalized by tomorrow or Thursday at the latest, Wednesday at the latest. Is there any scheduling conflicts, or do you think you'll all be able to attend? The 13th, yep. So next Thursday. Yeah. Well, we don't have to put you on the spot right now, but,
Someone hacked us.
What's the time of the meeting?
sorry?
What's the time of the meeting?
5 o'clock,
5 to 7.
5 to 7, yeah. I don't know if we'll go that full, the full 2 hours. I'm sorry?
I'm not available that Thursday.
Okay. Well, like I said, it will be recorded, and we can share all that information with you. So after the consultant has given the presentation and kind of gone through the conceptual, there's going to be some discussion on what do you like about it, what do you think, kind of thing like that. So if you're unable to attend, we'll send those materials to you, and then you can just provide us feedback on what you think, if that works. Okay? Okay.
I have a question, Aaron. You've done all this meetings and all that with regard to Cherry Hill Village and what people like and don't like about it. And there seems to be an impetus to have a town square, or that there's nothing bringing people to Cherry Hill Village or to make them stay, which I agree with all that. However, the people who live in Cherry Hill Village now have lived there for 20 years now, some of them. Is that what they want? I mean, if we have a town square and we start having events and restaurants and such in Cherry Hill Village, are we going to hear complaints from all the residents about, oh, there's so much traffic here now? You know, and you, yes, the answer to that is yes, you will always have some part of that, but is that something that's going to be widespread, do you think, in what you're hearing?
Well, and what we've heard thus far is people want something there, right? There's this cute little downtown enclave unto itself, and they want to go there, or people who generally live in Cherry Hill Village, because we've heard from them too, that they live in that area and they want to be able to frequent the the business is there, but there's just not anything that they find particularly enjoyable outside of the theater or maybe a restaurant. So overwhelmingly, the response, either in Cherry Hill Village or outside, has been that they want more things there. Now, granted, they say they do, and then once it gets there, that could be a different thing. But part of the conceptual discussions that we've had is how can we bring people here, but how can we accommodate them? You know, we want to make sure that we bring people here, but it's not at a detriment to the people who already live there, or it's not a drain on the infrastructure that already exists. So it's a balancing act, right?
And one of the things you see, and I know we always point to Plymouth a lot just because it's kind of the same idea, but one of the things that grinds me in Plymouth all the time is when they have art in the park or they have the ice festival or wherever, you see all these no parking signs in the neighborhoods around the downtown area go up and makes parking a nightmare. And I know it's because the residents there complain about all the cars and all that sort of thing. But if your community wants to have those types of events, there's a certain amount of, on the downside that comes with it. To your point, I think what you said is right. You got to find the balance. And I wouldn't want to develop a town square or a downtown area in Cherry Hill Village that the people who live there become unhappy with. Don't want all these intruders and all that sort of thing. So just something to keep in mind, I think.
And the intent is not to is not to redesign anything that's there. It's to look at what we have there and how can we improve upon it? How can we make it better? We're not trying to be Plymouth. We're not trying to design something that wouldn't fit there. What do we have that can attract people but still provide the services and still has the ability to accommodate the vehicles and the traffic that it's going to generate? So those are all things that are being taken into consideration. Yeah.
Well, and there's also available land there that isn't developed yet, that some we're hoping to maybe encourage a little bit more, thinking about, like, if the town square is developed, then are we able to bring in a few more businesses to be there?
Yep, all of these things are I don't want to give too much away, so. So, all of these things we kind of talked about it, and the consultant that will be present next week will do a much better job at explaining why they picked and choose certain areas. But all of those things have been considered. Now it's a robust plan. There's a lot to it, so don't get crazy shocked when you see it. There's going to be a phasing plan, so certain things will happen sooner than others, but this is it's kind of like it's going to be built into the master plan, so it's a long-range document on how that area could develop in the future, so. Right. Right. And it has to be done delicately, because we can focus on all the programming, but if we don't have anything else to draw people there, will they even know about it? You know, if we plan and just do, okay, we need parking for everyone who's going to come here, well, then you've just created a parking lot, but still nobody's coming there because there's nothing there to draw them there. So it has to be done in this very balanced, layered kind of way. Yeah.
Like, if this town square comes to fruition, how is it funded? Who's building it?
Who?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Damn.
Didn't see that GoFundMe page? So the township
Like
has
your
been
deep
working to
pockets.
secure some grant funding through the county. So that's going to help with offset some of those costs. But again, you'll hear all the details about it next.
You
So
don't
don't
wanna
get
give
too
it
ahead of the
away.
story. And then, so if we're good there, and as always, if you have any questions about anything, you can always reach out to me at any time. The other thing that was provided to you last week and copies of it is available here. The Master Plan Advisory Board has been discussing their vision, mission, value statements, and how those statements, those ideas, those will kind of lay the foundation for the rest of the plan and how we look at the rest of the planning topics that will go into the master plan. So they conducted a lot of exercises. They looked at their buzzwords. What are some things that they value? What are the ideas that they want to convey through the master plan? And so through a number of the activities that they did, McKenna Consultants then synthesized and analyzed the buzzwords and the themes and the topics that were being discussed and boiled them down to these almost four statements per category. So we had them look at them one last time at the last meeting. They felt that they were good. So bringing them forward to you this evening for you to look at, we can discuss tonight if you want some more time to digest and see what you think. But this is kind of where we're, kind of our jumping off point for the rest of the plan. I'm sorry?
Talk about it tonight?
Of course we can.
This is the part of the meeting I was excited to talk
Oh,
about.
great, I'm good.
First of all,
Is this the fun part of the meeting?
I guess it depends on your point of view.
It's the fun part.
I guess if anyone thinks that me talking is a fun part of the meeting, then I guess that's, first of all, I believe, I agree that they caught all the relevant buzzwords that seem to be prevalent throughout our dialogue these days about any number of things. My comments they're not a lot, I don't think, but I guess my first question is, the bulleted items, are they in any particular order, or is in terms of importance or anything?
No, that's why they're not numbered or anything, they're just
Okay.
bulleted pointed.
Then I'll reserve my comments about how I feel about their order of its importance until another time. But as far as the vision statement goes, the one thing that I think needs to be in here is, if we're talking about buzzwords, is about being a connected community, connectivity, and there seems to be a lot of desire for Canton to become more than just a bedroom community, like it becomes a destination. So I don't have a specific phrase or catchphrase to state that, but something capturing those elements, I think. The value statements I agree with. I would change the order a little bit if we were ordering them, but that's nothing. And then the mission statement, and I think this is where we really need to have something about, I know we have to connect the township through multimodal transportation while promoting walkability. That's fine, but I also think we need to go further on the connectivity aspect in terms of technology and that sort of thing, especially given the supervisor's desire to develop Michigan Avenue as a potential high-tech corridor. So something to capture that idea, I think, needs to be in the mission statement as well.
Everyone, if I could just say, does everyone agree with those ideas? Okay, excellent.
I think those are really good points.
Do we have any bike lanes anywhere in Canton? A single bike lane?
Have trails?
Just the trails, I think.
Trails.
Not on the roads.
Trails, but no dedicated bike lanes on roads.
So I know I've gotten grants, SEMCOG grants. When you have nothing, SEMCOG wants to give you something. So it's a good potential to get a grant from SEMCOG if you see an area that we could maybe put a bike lane or multi-use path somewhere.
Understanding is that's Wayne County jurisdiction, though, if it's on the roads.
Most of our roads are Wayne County roads unless they're private roads or MDOT roads, like Ford Road or Michigan Avenue.
That's something to think about and consider, but it is not the easiest thing to do.
But
And
that
it's-
doesn't, yeah, just because you're a township doesn't mean that you can't lobby with the county. Huron Township is an example. We put bike lanes downtown, and we worked with Wayne County heavily. But I think it's worth pursuing. And the other thing is, I feel like any retail should have bike racks. That's why I always ask, is there bike
Yeah.
racks, you know? just to encourage bikers that there's some available place rather than hooking it up to a no parking sign, you know? It doesn't hurt the development at all, you know?
Yeah, because I think one example that they are putting bike racks in is the new Greenland Market, because I can remember us having discussion about bike racks being there. Now, Cherry Hill Village, I think, is more conducive to the bike riding area. I mean,
Likeable.
Yeah. You don't have to go across
I
Ford
mean,
Road.
I'm not riding a bike along Ford Road.
Ford Road
Oh, and that's,
is a killer.
bike lanes are,
Let's put a bike road.
bike lanes could be a really great thing, but we have to look at it very practically on where those would be
Agreed.
safe. So Ford Road, Michigan Avenue, not quite so much, but Cherry Hill Village, that might be something that could be worked into. It's just, you know, we don't want to just say, hey, we have bike lanes, but don't use them because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
You guys haven't done a good job lately. We're gonna send you onto the Ford Road bike lane.
Go to Ann Arbor, I mean, it's like, wow, you guys put a bike lane here? Are you crazy? And it's unbelievable.
There's a lot of people that are
Yeah.
really bold about the biking,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, definitely.
And
yeah.
Beck
There's
is
a lot-
Beck's a good example.
But there are a lot of bikers in Ann Arbor, though, too. Yeah.
But you could make the argument there's not a lot of bikers here because you haven't provided the facilities for them,
True.
you know?
I think that's part of the hopefulness or intent to maybe hopefully expanding the trail system here in Canton and that sort of thing. At least you'll have a mechanism to connect to the 275 bike trail and down to the bike trail and down in here on Metro Park and all that sort of thing, so. It doesn't get you to the commercial areas, I know, but
Right, but if we could track and see where those are popular, okay, if we've created or if we've extended this trail and everyone seems to like it, okay, if that works there, then maybe we can extend it further and extend it further. And, you know, the long-term plan could be to connect to the commercial areas, but, you know, just doing something here may not work if there's not connectivity to something that already exists, right? That makes sense.
the bike trail that goes through the ITC corridor, if it could somehow come up to, and I don't think it's possible, but if it could come up to, say, Salts Road, and then you have a bike, have a bike lane on Morton Taylor that goes up to Ford Road and across Ford Road, then back down the service road that could go to Target and BJ's and places like that.
SEMCOG favors the grants that connect to something. You can't just put the bike lane in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, because no one
You
will go there.
connect to
yeah.
something, you get high points for that grant. Yeah.
So just going back, we've got connectivity more than just the bedroom community. We want it to be a destination. Go further with the multimodal transportation, focus on the technology component.
Smart, another catchphrase, smart cities, that kind of thing.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
Else you would like to incorporate? And if, I can send out another email and you guys can ruminate on this, marinate, think about this a little bit more. And if there's something else that comes up, we can talk about it further. But this is good discussion, so it's good to get something in front of you about what the Master Plan Advisory Board has been doing, because they've been working.
Like
We've
that
had some good
mission-
discussions.
That mission statement, would you say tech hub down Michigan Avenue or something? Converting it, so, I mean.
What does that mean?
Well, I know Anne Marie has, sorry, the
What
supervisor,
that means?
she hopes Michigan Avenue to develop into a high-tech corridor, like a,
Like businesses that?
yeah.
To tie into the testing ground in
Yeah.
Willow Run and like the Subaru facility there.
Being that we're between Detroit and Ann Arbor.
Mm-hmm.
Port nearby, yeah,
Both airports have, along I-94.
yeah.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong,
We will.
they identified, I-94 as this quote-unquote corridor, but Anne Marie kind of wants, she has hope to maybe get, I don't want to say shifted, but attention focused on Michigan Avenue. So,
That's,
spur development along Michigan Avenue as well. And, now that Amazon has their facility on Michigan Avenue and that sort of thing.
have a lot of storage units and car
Car washes, well, we're gonna have 2 car washes on Michigan
Yeah.
a
Avenue.
lot of that's going to come,
We have 3, really.
More money laundering businesses in Canton.
mattress
Well,
or
you know,
whatever.
Yeah.
when
All,
TikTok- when
all
Tik-
cash businesses.
When TikTok gets shot down, they can build a place on Michigan Avenue then. Anyway, that's where I'm going with this. I don't know if that
Yeah.
answers your question or not.
Yeah, yeah.
Anybody else have anything on the fun planning activities? You know, you're never going to hear the end of that.
I like it. It's fine. I embrace it.
I got just a really quick story. I went to a party in Royal Oak, and I Ubered, and the Uber drove me back home, and it was daytime still, and the Uber driver was like, "Wow, it's beautiful here." I'm like, "Well, what? What are you looking at?" He's like, "Oh, just the landscape. The road's nice. You got the sidewalks," and so I'm like, "Oh, yeah, you know," and it just dawned on me that you kind of take things for granted. And, you know, I asked him where he lived, and he said Southfield. It's crowded, and there's a lot of sprawl. And he's like, "Man, I'd love to live here," you know, and kind of makes you thankful, you know. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Southfield, and I feel the same way kind of about Troy. Southfield and Troy both, it's just, and they're gonna end up with a lot of empty office space now. I mean, what happens with all that space? I mean, fortunately, I'm kind of glad that we never got overdeveloped with office space here in Canton. So it's just, but you look at a place like Southfield, I don't know what they're gonna do with all that empty office space, convert it to apartments. So,
Reel us back in a little. Anything else about the master plan, anybody?
So if anybody has any final comments on these, if you could get them to me by Friday. If not, I'll work with McKenna. We'll tidy up some language. We'll get it back out to you and get some final thoughts, okay? But the joint meeting, April 13th, it will most likely not be here. It will be off-site somewhere. But I will get you those details when they're finalized.
guessing the choices would probably be like the Summit or the Village Theater, one of those two places.
Well, we tried the Village Theater.
Southfield.
Unfortunately, they're booked that evening. We thought that would be nice to be actually in the Village. So there's possibility at the Summit or the Village Arts Factory. So we've got two places that looks like it could work. But once it's finalized, I will let you know so that you're not worried.
I want to say thanks to the team that landed on the vision, value, and mission statements. It's never, ever easy. Never easy to land on something that everyone agrees upon, and to get this far is definitely, it's a milestone. So kudos to you and the team.
All part. All right, so we are at the moment in our agenda where we ask for public comment, so anyone?
I was expecting these people to.
I know, they left just before.
I just have one comment, if we can correct that clock, please.
I know. It's not past my bedtime according to that clock.
We'll put in a service request.
All right,
When they bring our chairs back, they can,
yeah. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and support to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody want to stay later? You could do it on your own time.
I'm going home to watch the basketball game.
Watch.